Good morning and welcome to the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Barbara Castellano-Stasiak, and I want to welcome you all to our spiritual home. We are a spiritually alive, radically inclusive, and justice-centered community. Welcome to everyone here with us in this room and everyone joining us online at our website or YouTube or Facebook. Welcome to newcomers and old-timers, and we do have a few visiting today. We are so glad that you're with us. I have the honor of serving as today's service associate, and today's music is provided by Beth Wilson, and will be with Caroline Gabor and Mary Jo Reed and myself, and all of you soon. We also have our AV folks working at the back, Alex West checking our sound and projections, and Tom Moran on our video camera. Today's service is presented by members of GEM, our Green Earth Ministry team, some of whom are also involved in our UN-UNO work for climate justice. Our offertory today will be shared between the Fellowship and the Unitarian Universalist Association office at the United Nations. We invite you to give generously when it's time, via text, via our website, or via cash or checks in our basket, or mailed into the Fellowship, whichever way is convenient for you. We have a few announcements today. One is to save the date on April 9th for UU Faith Action's annual gala, which will be held at Bridgewood Congregation, both in person and virtually. So you can register for that, and you'll be hearing more about that. But look at uufaithaction.org. If you're a newcomer, please join us for our next visitors orientation and tour, which will be next Sunday, the 27th of March, following each service, and we'll also host an online orientation and tour on Zoom the same day at 1 p.m. And today at 12:45, you have a chance to be a part of the lunch bunch at the Florham Park Diner, or join the meditation group in room 205. And now we have a special announcement from Paul Firm.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning. I am delighted to share this announcement about our capital campaign, Deeper Roots, Wider Wings, Moving Forward. Our planned edition is designed with our aspirations for inclusion and green design. So it's such a great segue to today's service, and I'm really happy to make the announcement here today. Think accessibility, solar electricity, heat pumps with zero emissions, returning stormwater to our ground. So thank you, GEM, and thank you, the UNO group, for working with the Gateways design teams on all of these different features that have been built into the plan. We are so close to fully funding this amazing addition. Since last September, we have raised a total of $3.6 million of the $4 million additional funds needed to fund the building. So we started with that big hole to fill, but thank you so much for all of the generous contributions, both first-time contributions and folks who have added to their prior contributions. Your generosity is truly amazing, and our growing pledges are really on track to reach this goal. And I want to thank our campaign team, of course, all the visitors who have visited you all, and your time to listen to the visits and to give us your feedback and respond so carefully and contribute. Our goal is to complete really all the visits in the next couple weeks. So we, again, started last September. We're really pretty much done. So please respond to our volunteers when they call you and consider us a generous pledge. Think about it. We're now raising the final 4% of the total money we've raised for this campaign. So a little over $300,000. Every donation is absolutely critical, and it will fund our building's environmental features, repair our historic mansion in a major way, and set our fellowship on a firm path to make a difference now and for generations to come. So, thank you.
We'll light our chalice for ourselves and generations to come. One of our elder generation is coming up. Please join in reading these words. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Today's Time for All Ages is The Wheel of Water by Tom Chapin, about the many ways and places that we experience water in our world.
So while the quartet is coming up, take a look at the water cycle graphic and think about the various places that we experience water in our...
It's underneath, you put it on the table.
Yes. I will speak here, but we know that we're having a problem with picking up sound going out to the public, so I'll try. Tom's camera will try to get that sound. So look at that land and all of the places where we see water in our oceans and lakes. It gets there coming down from the mountains and streams and rivers. When it's on the ground, on the lower levels, it rises up to the clouds, and then the clouds rain on us and with thunder and lightning and return it to the ground. And sometimes it bubble up in springs and in wetlands and the Great Swamp and places like that. So we're going to sing the song we sang with the children. We'll see if you can do as well now as they do. There are motions to do along with the song, and I'm going to have to put the mic down. So just listen and watch.
And sing.
And sing. So the song will be up here in a moment. The Wheel of the Water, which some of you may remember, Tom Chapin's song from long ago. Here we go. So in the first verse, we're going to sing, we're going to just teach it to you. Go ahead with the...
Wheel of the water go round and round, and the wheel of the water go round. Wheel of the water go round and round, and the wheel of the water go round.
And then we're going to learn the second line, which, there it is, which Mary Jo will sing for us along with the bottom. So,
Wheel of the water go round and round, and the wheel of the water go
down, trickle, trickle down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down.
movement.
Wheel of the water
Come on.
go round and round, and the wheel of the water go round.
And
Wheel of
the next line is the vapors.
Wheel of the water go round.
See the vapors rise, see them cloud the skies, see the vapors rise, see them cloud the skies.
And then we're going to sing the next one about wheels rain down, thunder and lightning sound. Clouds rain down, thunder and lightning sound.
Wheel of the water go
Bubble, bubble, up.
round and round, and the wheel
Rings,
of the water
bubble, bubble,
go
up.
round. Wheel of the bubble round and round, and the wheel of the water go round.
All right, so hopefully you got the basic melodies now in your
got it.
heads, and now we're going to put it together. So the first time around, we will sing one line at a time. Beth will sing the Wheel of the Water the whole time. But we will add, we'll sing line one, then line, and then that drops out, then line 2, and so forth. And then after we've introduced all of the lines, we will start adding them up. So if you sit over here in that second part, you'll be singing The Will of the Water the whole time. After that, I'm going to cue in this side over here to add in line 2. And then I'll cue in that side over there to cue in line 3, and that side over there to cue in line 4, and the people in the back for line 5. So all the parts will be singing at the same time, doing the movements if you can manage that. And then I will indicate when 5 drops out, and then 4 drops out, and then 3 drops out, and then 2 drops out, and we just still have the water cycle always going. Are we ready? I think you should stand up. If you can. Okay, that starts off.
Wheel of the water goes round and round, and the wheel of the water goes round. Wheel of the water goes round and round, and the wheel of the water goes round.
Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. See the vapors round and round, see them down the skies. See the vapors round and round, see the water goes skies. See the vapors round and round, see the water goes skies.
Oh, I didn't do right. Clouds rain down, thunder and lightning sound. Clouds rain down, thunder and lightning sound.
Springs bubble bubble up. Springs bubble bubble up. Springs bubble bubble up. Springs bubble bubble up.
And now,
Wheel of the water goes round and round, and the wheel of the water goes round.
Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Sea flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the ocean, trickle, trickle down. Water flow down, down, trickle, trickle down, down to the water goes down. Wheel of the water goes round and round, and the wheel of the water goes round. Wheel of the water goes round and round, and the wheel of the water goes round.
well done, Heather. Think about joining the club. Okay. Well, we're not sending the children out. We did that during the first service. There were a lot of them here. And we had no special milestones and passages today, but we can think about our own needs and the needs of our community and be with them in spirit. And we will now give our offertory contributions to the fellowship and to the UN office. And you can donate by text, and that number is 73256 with the keyword MUUF, followed by the dollar amount. Or you can go to the website. Or if you're here in the congregation, you can dig into your pockets or your purse. And we will be singing, the quartet will be singing The Water is Wide. Remember that this is a love song, but it's about all of our loves, not just our partners, but our children, our parents, our communities, our whole world. We all need the boat. We all need to build the boat. Come and sing.
The water is wide, I cannot cross all, but neither have I wings to fly. Build me a boat that will carry two, and both shall roll. My love and I. There is a ship, and she sails the sea. She's laden deep, as deep can be, but not so deep as the love I'm in. I know not if I sink or swim. I lean my back on a proud young oak, but what it was, a trusty tree, but first it grew, and then it broke, and so my love proved false to me. Oh, love is fair, and love is fine, bright as a rose, when first it's you, but love grows old, and sometimes cold, and fades away like the morning dew, and fades away like the morning dew.
Today's service is brought to you jointly by Green Earth Ministry and UU at UN. Again this year, the theme of the Intergenerational Spring Seminar is climate justice, and specifically displacement caused by climate change. Water insecurity and conflict is a big component of this phenomenon. Join us as we honor World Water Day this Tuesday, March 22nd, and also the spring equinox, which is today at 11:33, actually it was 3 minutes ago. You may know that the UUA has had a presence at the UN for many years, where they promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. You may recall that Bruce Knotts, the director of UU at UN, was our guest at a previous UN service. I think that the events in Ukraine have dramatically and tragically underscored the need for communication between nations, even though in this case clearly communication took a backseat to aggression and territorial ambitions. The UN is sometimes called a community of nations, and it can also serve in the role of isolation and exile. Although the UN can't simply vote to prevent or end the war, it can dramatically reveal how isolated Russia is now, with the 14-1 vote in the Security Council, Russia of course vetoing the resolution, and 141-5 with 35 abstentions in the General Assembly. Even countries which Russia thought would vote on its side, like China and Hungary, either abstained or even voted against Russia. This isolation is reflected in economic sanctions, which will be painful for them. Since the world is so interconnected, we need to take an interest in and support our voice in the UN. This UN Sunday service is one way we do that. There are two other ways I want to bring to your attention. One is to become a supporter of the UN at various support levels, starting at $30 per year. Our goal is to have 15 supporters within the congregation. You can do this online at the UUA.org website. Put UN in the search bar, and it's the first thing that pops up. Also, there's a sign-up sheet and a laptop in the Great Hall after the service to make this easy for you. The second is to participate in the annual Intergenerational Spring Seminar. This is specifically aimed at youth, though adults are welcome. It aims to instill in UU youth and adults a commitment to global engagement and the skills to take action locally to address global issues. The theme this year is Displacement and Human Rights, all in for climate justice, focusing on climate-forced displacement. It takes place online this year between April 22nd and May 1st. Registration is online at UUA.org. Type Spring Seminar in the search bar. The cost is tiered, starting at only $20. Registration is open now until April and closes on April 3rd. I've personally participated in several of these events, and they have been excellent. I believe that the youth participants have found it rewarding and enlightening. You can register on the UUA website, and there will be a sheet in the back, in the Great Hall. Please consider participating. And next we will show a video showing poet Kathy Jetnell-Kijner speaking at the UN Climate Leaders Summit about the effect of climate change on her home, the low-lying Marshall Islands, and reading a poem she wrote for her daughter.
Our next speaker was selected from more than 500 candidates to represent the voice of civil society. From the Marshall Islands, please welcome Kathy Jetnell-Kijner.
Yaweko Mode. My family and I have traveled a long way to be here today, all the way from the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands encompasses more than 2 million square kilometers of ocean, and so it makes sense that our culture is one of voyaging and navigation. One of our most beloved legends features a canoe race between 10 brothers. Their mother, holding a heavy bundle, begged each of her sons for a ride on their canoe. But only the youngest listened and took her along for the ride, not knowing that his mother was carrying the first sail. With the sail, he won the race and became chief. The moral of the story is to honor your mother and the challenges life brings. Climate change is a challenge that few want to take on, but the price of inaction is so high. Those of us from Oceania are already experiencing it firsthand. We've seen waves crashing into our homes and our breadfruit trees wither from the salt and drought. We look at our children and wonder how they will know themselves or their culture should we lose our islands. Climate change affects not only us islanders, it threatens the entire world. To tackle it, we need a radical change of course. This isn't easy, I know. It means ending carbon pollution within my lifetime. It means supporting those of us most affected to prepare for unavoidable climate impacts. And it means taking responsibility for irreversible loss and damage caused by greenhouse gas emissions. The people who support this movement are Indigenous mothers like me, families like mine, and millions more, standing up for the changes needed and working to make them happen. I ask world leaders to take us all along on your ride. We won't slow you down. We'll help you win the most important race of all, the race to save humanity. I would now like to share with you a poem that I have written for my daughter, Montefele Beno. Dear Montefele Beno, you are a 7-month-old sunrise of gummy smiles. You are bald as an egg and bald as the Buddha. You are thighs that are thunder, shrieks that are lightning, so excited for bananas, hugs, and our morning walks along the lagoon. Dear Montefiore Beno, I want to tell you about that lagoon. That lazy, lounging lagoon, lounging against the sunrise. Men say that one day that lagoon will devour you. They say it will gnaw at the shoreline, chew at the roots of your breadfruit trees, gulp down rows of seawalls, and crunch through your island's shattered bones. They say you, your daughter, and your granddaughter too, will wander, rootless, with only a passport to call home. Dear Montefiore Beno, don't cry. Mommy promises you, no one will come and devour you. No greedy whale of a company sharking through political seas. No backwater bullying of businesses with broken morals. No blindfolded bureaucracies gonna push this mother ocean over the edge. No one's drowning, baby. No one's moving. No one's losing their homeland. No one's becoming a climate change refugee. Or should I say, no one else. To the Carteret Islanders of Papua New Guinea and to the Taro Islanders of Fiji, I take this moment to apologize to you. We are drawing the line here because we, baby, are going to fight. Your mommy, daddy, boo-boo, Jima, your country, and your president too, we will all fight. And even though there are those hidden behind platinum titles who like to pretend that we don't exist, who like to pretend that the Marshall Islands, Tuvalu, Kiribati, Maldives, Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, floods of Algeria, Colombia, Pakistan, and all the hurricanes, earthquakes, and tidal waves didn't exist. Still, there are those who see us, hands reaching out, fists raising up, banners unfurling, megaphones booming, and we are canoes blocking coast ships. We are the radiance of solar villages. We are the fresh, clean soil of the farmers past. We are teenagers, blooming petitions. We are families, biking, recycling, reusing, engineers, building, dreaming, designing, artists, painting, dancing, writing, and we are spreading the word. And there are thousands out on the streets, marching hand in hand, chanting for change now. And they're marching for you, baby. They're marching for us. Because we deserve to do more than just survive. We deserve to thrive. Dear Montefiore Beno, you are eyes heavy with drowsy weight. So just close those eyes and sleep in peace. Because we won't let you down. You'll see.
Hi, my name is Steve Gruber. I volunteer for the Great Swamp Watershed Association. They are a nonprofit organization that works to protect the water in the 25 square mile area surrounding the Great Swamp National Wildlife Refuge. It's important to protect the water around the refuge so the plants and wildlife won't be harmed by polluted water, and then you won't have a refuge anymore. Also, there are a lot of homes in the area that have wells, so the water quality is important. Water is the most important thing that humans, animals, and plants need, and its purity is important. You can survive a long time without food, but will survive only days without pure water. All of our water comes from either rain or snow, and then flows into streams or soaks into the ground. So it's very important to keep our land clean by controlling development and impervious cover. Water is also used a lot for recreation, such as fishing, swimming, and boating. It has to be clean. But water can also be a foe. if it causes flooding and carries diseases and destroys our shoreline. The Watershed Association owns about 75 acres of property on Tiger Lily Lane in Harding Township. Historically, this property was swampland. It's probably part of the Great Swamp, and was drained many years ago to raise sheep and goats. To help water quality in the Great Swamp and Passaic River, the Watershed Association decided to plug the drainage ditches and create some vernal pools, which are habitat for frogs, toads, and salamanders. The Silver Brook flows through this property and eventually into the refuge, so this will allow the water to be retained for a period rather than rushing into the refuge, which may help a little with downstream flooding on the Passaic River. And this year I found out that this has really worked, because I was over there yesterday and this property is right along Route 287, and you couldn't hear the highway because the peepers were so loud that they were just screaming. The retained water will have a chance to percolate into the ground, where the soil helps to clean the groundwater. Also, Silverbrook drains a large corporate property on Route 202, which contains a lot of contaminants, which may be cleaned by holding the water for a period of time. Years ago, the Silverbrook was straightened and channelized so that you can get rid of the water quickly. So now what they've done is they put some large trees in the banks of the stream, and that causes the silt and stuff that flows through the stream to collect and change the pattern of the river. It makes it meander more. In 1995, the Watershed Association realized that they were protecting the land around the refuge, but they weren't monitoring the water quality to see what kind of water was flowing into the refuge. So then they organized the 10 towns around the refuge and into a committee, and what they do is they monitor the water quality. And then the GSWA absorbed this group into their organization, and there was now they have a stream team that monitors the water quality in the 5 streams that flow into the refuge. They do this during the wet periods and dry periods so that they can get an average of what the water quality is. And now recently they've also started to study bacteria. The Great Swamp Watershed Association has recently become a waterkeeper associate on the Passaic River, and now they monitor the water quality all the way down to Little Falls. And I don't know whether they have monitors past that, but they're eventually going to go all the way, monitor the water all the way to the North Bay. The data that GSWA generates can help with the companies make decisions about how to purify the water. Another way to clean the water and mitigate flooding is to make rain gardens. These are patches of ground next to a parking lot that are planted with native plants, and the water from the parking lot is directed into the rain garden, so that way it doesn't flow all over the land. Rain gardens can also be created on your properties and connected to the gutters on your house to drain your roof into the garden instead of onto the ground or into the street. The Watershed Association has helped install rain gardens in Lewantica Brook Reservation, Madison, and Patterson. So take your families to the Great Swamp Watershed Association property or to the Great Swamp National Wildlife Refuge to see the friendly water that helps animals and plants survive.
And now the quartet is coming back to sing a song about what happens when the polluted, poisoned waters affect the hills of Kentucky.
I come from
Today's service is in part a celebration of World Water Day, so I would like to reflect for a few minutes on some atypical impacts it has had on my life. As many of you know, I have been interested in tiny houses and minimalist living for a long time. However, I found myself living the usual resource-intensive 4-bedroom house in the suburbs commuting to work lifestyle. Then, in the past several years, I went through 2 nearly simultaneous life events which changed that totally, namely a divorce and retirement. That left me with the autonomy and resources to do whatever I damn well pleased. Also, I was gifted an old, well-worn, but still running RV. So for the past 3 years, I've had my RV parked at the swim club that has a few sites for visitors. The plumbing is all above ground, so running water is shut off from November to April, almost half the year. Consequently, during those months, I carry my water in using gallon jugs. Here is a picture of a water run last winter when I couldn't even drive all the way to my place, but had a snowshoe the last 250 yards. Here is a week's supply of water, including 2 empties on the floor. I've learned to make do with this much for most of my needs while the running water is off. If I need hot water, I heat it in the microwave. I've learned how wasteful my erstwhile lifestyle was, and also how heavy water is. 8.34 pounds per gallon, in fact. Before you get too sympathetic to my situation, I have to say that I have access to the main house at the swim club, where the owner lives all year round, where I can take showers, wash clothes, and fill my jugs. Truly going cold turkey on modern conveniences would be a lot harder, and I doubt that I could tolerate that. Now, 2 Sundays ago, Allison spoke about just water and mentioned that one of the several causes of the Ukraine war is, in fact, a struggle over water. Specifically, the Crimea region of Ukraine, which had been a highly productive breadbasket in prior decades, has been becoming more and more arid and relied on a canal to carry water from the DeLap River to irrigate fields in Crimea. Since the forcible annexation of Crimea in 2014 during the previous aggression, this source has been cut off. As a result, the production of wheat is down 90% from its peak, and one rationale for the Russian invasion was to forcibly restore this flow and thereby wheat production. This observation brought to my mind another time several years ago when Allison spoke about water scarcity and how that motivates conflict around the world. That sermon coincided with an upcoming trip at that time to visit my daughter Katitza, who was living in Doha, Qatar, one of the United Arab Emirates. I also had planned to visit relatives in Haifa, Israel, the home of Technion University. So I decided to learn more about desalination by meeting with scientists on the ground there in the Middle East. Here is a graphic showing how desalination works. So salt water is drawn from the ocean and boiled. The energy can be heated from burning fuels, or it can be solar. And then steam is condensed into fresh water, and the leftover salt is returned to the ocean. The seawater desalination process was commercialized by Alexander Zarkin, ironically, a Ukrainian-born Israeli engineer, in 1965. In the weeks preceding my trip, I was able to make contact with friendly scientists at Doha University and at Technion to arrange a short visit to talk about desalination. I was very open with them that I had no projects in mind, no information to contribute, that I was just a tourist. However, they were passionate about their field and happy to chat. And I ended up spending a couple of hours at both places and learned a lot of interesting facts, which I had mostly forgotten. However, the most memorable statement was from the Israeli scientist. He said, paraphrasing, "We live in a very dry place and are surrounded by enemies. However, water is not a big security issue for us because of desalination. We have plenty of water." And indeed, here's a quote from Scientific American in 2016. Israel now gets 55% of its domestic water from desalination, and that has helped to turn one of the world's driest countries into the unlikeliest of water giants. Coincidentally, and I didn't know when I planned my trip, but one of my relatives in Haifa was able to show me another way that Israel uses water wisely. This gentleman was a farmer who practices drip irrigation. His land is covered with light cloth to trap evaporation but allow sunlight through. The entire field was covered with pipes and hoses which led directly to each plant. With soil moisture and temperature sensors and computers, he was able to deliver exactly the optimum water needed by each plant individually, wasting almost none. This was high-tech, intensive, high-yield agriculture. Ironically, he grows zucchinis, which I hate. But I didn't tell him that. I wanted to tell you about some of the ways that water has played a role in my life, which is maybe different from most people's experience. For half the year, I live in a condition which many people would call third world level water scarcity. However, for me, it's a choice. I do it because it's an oddly enjoyable adventure and I like having a low resource footprint. But I do retreat to the clubhouse for showers, etc. For me, it's scarcity, but not insecurity. I'm also a big fan of and believer in clever technological solutions. I wanted to give you a few examples of already successful technologies around water sources and usage, which might mitigate the negative impacts of climate change, which I believe is inevitable and already baked in the cake. My approach to climate change is accommodation, doing what we can to minimize further climate change to be sure, but retreating from areas which will become unlivable in a clear-eyed and controlled way that spreads and minimizes the pain. Not all climate-induced displacement has to be a tragedy. Some could happen as a managed crisis in as just and compassionate a way as possible, given resources and will.
Hello, I'm Linda DeLap. I'm going to talk a little bit about climate action. And really, Ukraine, that was a tragedy and is continuing to be a tragedy. As Gabor mentioned, the long-term drought in Crimea is probably a contributing factor to the invasion. Russia has used its wealth from oil and gas exports for that invasion, and in multiple regions throughout the world, conflict and drought are forcing people from their homes. Elsewhere, severe storms, flooding, sea level rise, heat waves, crop failures, and wildfires are displacing people. We urgently need to transition to clean energy for geopolitical reasons and to mitigate the effects of climate change. How do we steer society away from fossil fuels? Does marching in the streets help? In September 2014, over 300,000 people participated in the People's Climate March in Manhattan. Among them were hundreds of Unitarian Universalists, many from our fellowship. Raise your hand if you were there. In December 2015, Steve Gruber, Joseph Igora, and I joined a peaceful demonstration organized by 350.org. Along with hundreds of others dressed in red, we took a boat to Liberty Island. There we stood holding hands in a long line near the water's edge. The demonstration took place just before the start of COP21, the United Nations Conference on Climate, in which the Paris Agreement was adopted. Over the past 5 years, most of my climate action has been to co-lead the local chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby. We advocate for legislation that would impose fees on companies that extract or import carbon-based fuels. And those companies right now are having windfall profits because of prices going up so high with the invasion. The revenue from the fees would go to U.S. households to offset price increases. Steadily rising fees on carbon-based fuels could reduce emissions 50% by 2030. This legislative approach aligns with EU values of democracy, equity, and care for the earth. You can help by sending an email message to President Biden and your senators advocating for climate legislation. I have a display just outside here with more information. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Around the world, courageous indigenous people and their allies are acting to protect water and climate from pollution caused by fossil fuels. In 2016, the Lakota tribe that lives along the Missouri River invited faith leaders to join them at Standing Rock to block construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. And you may remember that these water protectors included Reverend Allison Miller and her husband David Snedden. They went to Standing Rock and they proclaimed water is life. The Trump administration approved the Dakota Access Pipeline. Within the first 6 months of its operation, it leaked 6 times. The pipeline could eventually be shut down as a result of the court-ordered environmental impact statement, which is now in progress. Another pipeline called Line 3 was a more recent target of indigenous activists in Minnesota. In the anthology, All We Can Save, this book here, which I got from the public library, an Anishinaabe woman, that's the tribe's name, wrote an essay, Sacred Resistance, and I'll end my reflection by reading 2 passages from her essay. Some of us leave the land to bring our case to the financiers of the industry we oppose. I remind corporate heads that they drink water and breathe air, as awkward as it can be to remind a person of their own humanity. It has proven exceedingly effective to bring indigenous rights and the voice of the land into these spaces. Indigenous advocacy brings a collision of values across a polished desk. And finally, she writes, the sacred is all around us, always. The sacred is in each of our bodies, the miracle of life and water and earth. It is present in every object we touch, every wall and window we somehow believe separates us from our mother. We each hold the beauty of creation in every fiber of our being. We are never far from the answer to the problem we have created. It is in each of us. That last sentence gives me hope. The answer to the problem of climate change is within all of us when we promote accountability and justice. We have another song, right? Oh, good. This is one of my favorites.
Please join us in singing We'll Build a Land. The words will be projected up here, and they're in the hymnals. They're slightly different, we'll see.
Free.
Going forward, let us be energized by our UU values of democracy, equity, and care for the earth, as were expressed in this service today. Side with love as we protect and conserve the waters that give us life and sustain us all. Side with love for justice. During the coffee hour today, we invite you to drop by the exhibits in the Great Hall and in the dining room, where you can take a stand for a green amendment in our New Jersey Constitution, to advocate for a smart carbon pricing bill, and to become a member of the UU at UN. In the weeks and months to come, the Green Earth Ministry and the UU at UN will call on you to resist giving up, giving in, or giving in to the climate crisis by raising your UU voice. Thank you.
What time is it?